Join me. Whakataka taho ki te uru, whakataka taho ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hiaki ana te atakura, e tio, e huka, e hohu, tihei muriora. Okay, so just to get some admin out of the way, so item of business not on the agenda. So in terms of Standing Order 10.12, I'll just move that the committee notes that the public excluded matter of the appointment of directors to Wellington Water was not listed on the agenda because the information was received after the agenda was distributed. Notes that the reason the report is publicly excluded is due to privacy matters and agrees to discuss the matter at this meeting due to urgency. So I'll just move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Connolly. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay, thank you. So moving through to apologies. So I've received apologies from Helmut Modlik and Andrea Rutini, and I'll also put in Melissa Sadler-Footer's apologies for now as well. So I'll move those. Do I have a seconder? Mayor Baker. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Public comment.
Campbell, Melissa's here.
Oh, Melissa, great. Sorry, Melissa. Apologies. We will just take that off. So great to have you, Melissa. Public comment. We've got no members of the public who wish to speak. Conflict of interest declarations. Any conflicts that members wish to declare? No. Okay. So we'll move through to item 5, which is the only public item which we have today, which is value for money report. This is on page 8 of your agenda, and I'll ask Pat Doherty, our Chief Executive, to speak to the item, and Nick Leggett, Board Chair. I believe I just can't quite see Nick on my screen.
I am here. Look, do you mind, Mr. Chair, if I just lead off very briefly?
Absolutely. I'll pass it over to you, Nick. Thanks.
Well, kia ora koutou, and I appreciate people's presence today. Just to consider the value for money report, really it's first base. This is a collection, obviously, of, it's a grouping of all the reports that Wellington Water has undertaken on different aspects of its performance. And today is really putting forward those 123 recommendations to you, but without priority. And the priority really will occur now through the organisation, and the Wellington Water Board in its meeting of next month will come back to you with obviously a record of the actions completed and taken, of which there are many, but also those where we feel we can prioritise with the resources that we have. Members will recall that after the budgetary review failure, that budgetary review that was based on the budgetary failure last LTP, that we did come back to you seeking funding to implement some of those findings. That funding obviously hasn't been forthcoming, but nonetheless, with the additional reports that we've had from AECOM and Deloitte in this new year, it's actually timely for us to go through and prioritise. I'd also just like to note we have taken several items of immediate action, including the restructuring of the contractual relationships. And that's really around establishing direct relationships with key subcontractors and consultants, and being able to have a greater test of where the market actually sits for a lot of this work. The new performance framework with the Alliance to enhance efficiency and accountability, and just the introduction of competitive tendering, just to ensure that councils, on behalf of your residents and ratepayers, can provide a greater assurance, as well as Wellington Water's assurance, that we're getting value for money on the projects that are being delivered on your behalf. We, as a board, certainly acknowledge the shortcomings identified in all of these reports, and our commitment is to address them. The question will be around timing. As I said, many we have addressed. I've just outlined a couple of significant items that we have addressed, but then there will be some, whether they fall directly into the now or once we've got clarity on the local water done well entity, when that's formed, to be able to have better discussions with that entity about what responsibility sits where and the timing. I think that is of some importance as well. So that's just from me, and Pat will probably want to say more, but from a board perspective, we're absolutely committed to prioritising these for the Water Committee and bringing those back at the end of May. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thanks, Nick. So, Pat, would you like to make any other comment, and then we can open it up for questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Nick's covered it very well. Happy to answer questions.
So we've got Erin Ganley here as well. Was Erin going to make any comments?
Erin is here to help me if there are any detailed questions. She has kindly gone through these reports, pulled out all the recommendation as the one leading the work on now getting them into consistent themes and identifying the ones that we can make a difference with over the next 15 months. She's here for the questions.
Gotcha. Good. Okay. Is there any questions from members? You could just use your virtual hand. Great. Councillor Connolly.
Hey, thanks everyone. Can you hear me okay? Just technology. So the kind of big news to come out of this report was a mystery missing report done in, I think it was 2001. Can you provide a little bit? So you've included the recommendations of that report in the table, which is really useful, and they clearly hint at some of the same issues that have been surfaced in subsequent reports. I'm just wondering if we will get a chance to read that report, given that it is quite on the money, but also I think there's probably quite a lot of duplication between that report and the actions that have subsequently been raised.
Yes, it is our intention to put a copy of that report up on our website. We just need to go through and make any appropriate redactions, and then it'll be up there. And look, my understanding is it was commissioned as an internally commissioned report, but an action plan was identified to address some of those issues, but resources were never provided to implement them. So nothing happened. But when it was drawn to my attention that this report existed, I felt it, and it was on the same topic, and consistent with the approach of being completely transparent. We brought it here today as well, and we'll as soon as we've got it up on the website, we'll email the committee members and let you know that it's there. But yes, there are some depressingly similar themes. That it was a 2021 report, and yeah, it would have been great if some of the stuff had been addressed then.
Have some other questions, Campbell, but I don't want to be greedy, so I'm happy for other people to go first if you want.
I don't see any other virtual hands up at the moment, so if anyone else does have any questions, if you could just use that virtual hand, but otherwise keep going, Councillor.
So the Field Force report adds a different flavour to the table that you've put on it here, because I guess the other reports were all done or commissioned by Wellington Water, and we've all, apart from the mystery missing report, they've all come back to the board and to the committee for us to look at those and kind of agree on a set of actions. The Field Force report is a little bit different in that it was not commissioned by Wellington Water. And I note that there's quite a bit of narrative in the actions, just explaining in giving a bit of context to those recommendations from a Wellington Water perspective. And I'm wondering if, I mean, I think it's really, really useful to have the Field Force report out there and transparently discussed along with the other recommendations. But I do wonder if we need to give it a little bit of a different treatment, given the fact that it does have a different genesis, and we might not necessarily agree with all of the recommendations that were raised in it.
Is that a question for me to answer, Mr. Chair?
My view about that is, Councillor Connolly, is that Field Force 4 will be considered among all of the reports, and it will be prioritised by the board for the committee. And the committee, of course, can answer questions, but we will go through this with some granularity, and where there aren't relevant pieces, my assumption is that we will we'll make those adjustments. I mean, Field Force 4, of course, was relating to the alliance with Fulton Hogan, so it is on one part, but I do think it's a part that is useful for us to consider in the totality of these reports and what they recommend.
I think also helpful for that feedback, Councillor, because we are looking for any sort of feedback to inform, obviously, the work that the team are doing. So I think both Nick and Pat have taken that on board, and that can come back. We do have Deputy Mayor Sadler-Footer, and then I can come back to you, Councillor, unless happy with that. Great.
Just following off the back of Roz's question, and the fact that she highlighted that the Field Force report didn't have its genesis in this committee, but it also hasn't been discussed at this committee. I'm wondering if now, given the totality of reports, if it would be worthwhile actually discussing that report at this committee, so that it does have the same committee overview that the other reports have had, and then therefore can just form part of the suite of recommendations that are before us and Wellington Water.
I think the report was discussed by the committee, but also I think the challenge with it was that it didn't have the engagement of the other shareholding councils, so it was only Wellington City, which did always make it a little bit problematic. Yeah, but I think it definitely was covered, but let's. Okay. Is there any other comment you'd want to make, Nick, Pat?
I think that we have 123 recommendations, and quite honestly, there's no chance that we're going to be able to deliver on all of those. So we'll be looking for the big wins, and regardless of which reports they come out of. And there are a lot. When you read through those recommendations, a lot of them are saying the same things. So that's why we also want to group them together in consistent themes. So I don't think we need to have another deep dive into that report. I think that we will be able to do it as we work through the actions that we're frantically trying to get back to the next meeting.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Mayor Guppy.
Yeah, look, we need to keep the record straight. Deputy Mayor Sadler is correct. On a number of occasions, the Field Force report was asked to be discussed at this committee, and every single time it was dismissed and said it wasn't appropriate to be discussed at that committee. So it was never, ever discussed at this water committee.
Well, we'll have to agree to disagree, Mayor Guppy. I can send you the minutes.
It was never discussed at this committee, I can tell you, because on a number of occasions it was asked to be put on the agenda, put on to be discussed, and it was dismissed quickly.
Okay. Well, Mayor Baker?
I disagree. We did discuss it at the committee meeting. You want to bring up the papers and have a look?
Look, it certainly was raised. I think maybe what Mayor Guppy is alluding to is the role of the committee with the recommendations and the likes. But let's take that offline, and we can certainly send through previous minutes just to clarify exactly what was covered. But I think the point of Mayor Sadler-Footer and Councillor Connolly is a fair one in regards to what the team bring back, and I think that's certainly been well received. Has been received by the team. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yep. Sorry. Yes. Councillor Connolly.
I have a couple of others. So one is in relation to, or a couple are in relation to what's called the non-financial and related parties report. So I think that's the new old report, the 2002 one. So quite a few of those reports, like lack of information, inability to monitor work, etc., are very consistent themes. But there were two in particular that caused me a little bit of angst. In addition to the regular level of angst that I get from Wellington Water. One was recommendation 2, and it's given the number 116 on our papers, and it says system notes are not sufficient to ensure consistent understanding of measurement calculations. I guess that was the first recommendation that had kind of hit really at technical delivery of pipes and stuff. So I just wanted a bit of, if someone could provide me with a bit of detail as to what that meant. And similarly, exceptions identified through the quality assurance survey are not investigated and tracked to resolution. So these are more actually about the work being delivered, and so they were kind of more around the technical side of things that were caused me a little bit of anxiety.
Someone want to cover that question?
Erin, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, great. Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. So those two specifically responded to you recall, we had some qualified audits around the delivery of our performance measures, and those two specifically were to cover those. Those areas have been substantially improved since this recommendation, because they did directly talk to audit measures and the reporting of our non-financial performance measures. So those system notes, which are around how we collect and use the data, have been improved. And the other one is around the QA surveys. So this was in the early days of the implementation of Maximo, and so since there has been some improvements made around that reporting of those metrics.
So I guess it was just particularly the measurement calculations that was in relation to performance measures for audits, rather than like how long a pipe needed to be or something.
Yes, it was. It was specifically around the DIA's non-financial performance measures around priority 1, 2, and 3, response times and those kind of measures. Yes, it wasn't around base asset data.
Right, that is really good. And my last question is just back to the fluoride report, which is my favourite. 107, the recommendation. You've said the recommendation is continue to strengthen the regulatory function. That was not the recommendation from the report, although I do think it's a good goal, and indeed I know we've done that. The recommendation was, so the other 4 were recommendations from that fluoride report. The 5th recommendation was around the internal audit function, and I guess the reason that I raised that, and I'm concerned that it dropped off and has been replaced by something that wasn't a recommendation, was the fact that I think, at the time that we're looking at delivering on 120 actions to improve the organisation, we need to ensure that our internal audit function is top-notch. And so I guess that's why I particularly raised that as something that we need to be across and make sure that it's as good as possible, so that we are looking at ourselves and can provide the assurance that stakeholders are looking for.
If I may, through you, Mr. Chair, thank you, Councillor Connolly. I think that's a nuance. The regulatory function, the internal audit sits within the regulatory function within Wellington Water. So I'll note that and take on board for the recommendations. Thank you.
Representative Faulkner, Māori.
Kia ora. Thank you for the report and the associated info. I suppose I've got a generic question. And the generic question is, I struggled to identify the relevance because there's just so much high-level information in there. And I think what it would be useful to do is ensure that we don't lose the forest from the through the trees, is that having a clear sense on that grouping would be really good, but also some more refined measures that fall out of the recommendations. Because me personally, I didn't see value in the recommendations in as far as it's going to lead to some sort of outcome. It was just a little bit too high level for me. I can give you some examples if you like, but you know, a lot of it was, you know, increase this or, you know, introduce this or do. There wasn't enough specificity for me. So I think moving forward, it would be really useful to ensure that we've got some relevance that flows out of the recommendations, so that we can actually, hand on heart, say we see those recommendations contributing to an improvement here because of that, if that makes sense.
That's really good feedback for the next report that will come through. Yeah. Okay, any other questions or feedback like that? No? Okay, so I'll move through to the recommendations, and they are just noting recommendations. And of course, the feedback that has been given will be taken on board by the team in preparation for the next committee meeting and the report. So it's recommendations on page 8, 1 through to 4. I'll move them. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Connolly. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no. Declare that carried. Okay, questions? I've received no questions. Just before I go to exclusion of the public, just to tick another thing off my list as well, I was sent an email from the board chair, Nick Leggett, today, just in regards to the conflict of interest legal advice, which he did advise the committee he would look to seek, and he has sent that through to me. I will share this with the committee members via email once we're out of this meeting. But just wanted to let you know that it has been received, and I cannot see any issues with the dual role that he does hold, and that the conflicts have been appropriately managed, as well as some pretty common sense, I think, advice around how to manage it potentially going forward as well. But just to tick that off the list, so I know that was raised in the previous committee meetings, and I will send this through to you so you can have a look as well. Okay. So we'll
I was wondering if you would indulge me. Just wondering if Pat could update us on the western sewer main and assure us that that is tracking as it was meant to and will be finished on the 27th.
I can answer that. The answer is yes.
Awesome.
Is that right, Pat?
No.
Oh no. Sorry, carry on.
Look, I haven't had an update on that. I'm expecting one by the end of the day, but I'm still in Nelson's Day, but it rained over the weekend and there was heavy rain. I think all of our treatment plants have had overflowed treated wastewater at some stage, and I'm pretty sure that we will have had to stop work on that sewer main for a day or two, which is probably a day or two we've lost. The Wellington Transport Alliance have made it pretty clear there won't be an extension of time. So one of the things we were doing right from the start was relining the worst affected sections first. But unless we can get an extension of time from the Alliance, we may have to come back at some other time. But look, that's my informal understanding at the moment. But no, I couldn't let your assurance that it's going on track, Campbell, stand uncorrected.
No, that's okay. My update was at 7 a.m. this morning, so maybe it hadn't flowed through to us yet. So no, that's cool. If you could maybe just email particularly I know that the team
I
here.
will email all the committee members before the end of the day with an update of where we are.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. And moving through to exclusion of the public. So I'll move that the public be excluded from the following part of the meeting: appointment of directors through Wellington Water. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Saddler-Footer. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against no. Declare that carried. Thank you. Kate, if you can let me know